Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome to The First Turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today, with almost no preparation, we haven't discussed
Almost none.
anything that we're going to be talking about today.
Nope. Let's eat.
But there's let's eat. No, there's so much to talk about, honestly.
Yeah.
Because we've got a few days left until the next LVO preview, which we've theorized a little bit. We've got a little more information on that.
Yeah.
Some mixed information on that, plus some leaks. Plus, our Adepticon registration opens tomorrow.
Yeah,
so really exciting.
So
I'm
Sunday at
pumped for
noon.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
I think in the past, didn't they do it on like a weekday? Because I know a lot of us were like working.
Well,
and then
so they always did like the hotel block on a Saturday. I remember that because it was always difficult because it was like Saturday at 12:30.
Yeah, and 1 million people got on at the same time.
And so it was just really bizarre. The last couple times I think they did it on Saturdays.
Okay.
Because it was because it's a little inconvenient on a Saturday, honestly. Just because it's like, well, I'm usually doing something by noon on Saturday, and it's like, oh crap, I got to be by my computer to do this. I'm not doing it on my phone. I'm not going to do it. Like, there's certain things you just don't do.
No, I've never had something like
device,
that work
right?
on the mobile device. Because if you hit back or you click on a menu and it doesn't open fully,
Because like some tasks, especially, I feel like when it involves like spending money, like I just don't do it on a mobile. Right, some things are laptop tasks. Call it.
Yeah.
Paying bills, booking a hotel, or booking a flight.
Well, and I think
could you imagine doing it on a phone? That's insanity.
Yeah. Well, especially when you have to do the click on a calendar thing and it only lets you go through one at a time.
Yeah.
And then with something like this, where it's like you're trying to be the first of however many get the special thing, I don't trust the phone.
And you need to have as much like screen real estate as possible so you can scroll through a list and find the thing you're looking for, do a quick search in the list to find your thing so you can check it and get out and get paid, and pay for the event and all that. It's like the phone. It's just
now, one good thing, if I remember from last year, was you could get your badge, check out, and then later, if you wanted, go in and add events, and you just pay for it separately. But
which, I mean, you've always kind of been able to do that, but one of the biggest things for the last few years have been is it's a first come, first serve for sort of the premium events, right? I mean, that included a premium event like, I don't know, Warhammer Championships or premium events because they would fill up immediately.
Or if your interest is a painting class with like a
12 capacity
with a master painter, they might be doing 8 classes that they're running during the entire event, but they've only got 12 or 16 capacity. You got to click and get in there right away because everybody's going to go to that name.
Yep. And so like those kind of like high ticket, high desirable events are only going to get harder to get into because with moving to bigger venues, more people can go. There's more tickets available. We're going to see like the capacities for those events remain the same. And the number of events kind of stay the same, but the number of people going are going to increase, which makes it harder to get those events.
Yep.
Or you got to be in even quicker. I mean, I remember, like it was like 40K Champs was sold out after the opening weekend of Adepticon last year, which is like, well, I didn't get in there on Saturday, so I'm on the wait list for championships. It's like, that is insane.
In like a 256 player event or whatever it is.
It was like 500.
Oh,
it was a big. I'm pretty sure it was huge. I think it was a really high capacity. But mine are less desirable. Like I'm doing narrative events again. It's just more fun that way. Like
when most of them are only one day,
one afternoon.
Yeah,
you play 2 or 3 games. It's a couple hours, and then I get convention time. I like to have a mix. I do not want my convention time to be, dominated by, like an obligation. You know what I mean? Like just being in any of the championships means you are locked into at least 2 days.
Yeah.
Because they're all 2-day events. You have your day 1. If you do well, you go into day 2. If you do good, you go to tops and you have a day 3 potentially for a lot of things. Have those prime like Friday, Saturdays, both days full. Like I don't want that.
Yeah, and there's some people that even we know who the only reason they go to conventions is for the tournaments, and I guess if that's their thing, go them. I don't understand it because it does feel like the only time I've ever done those tournaments, you feel like you don't even get to participate in the convention. Like even just the fun peripheral stuff or demo games or really check out the trade show, the vendor hall. I guess I confuse those two. But like, yeah, it's like, well, I have to be up before everybody,
right?
Because my thing starts at 9, and then I'm playing until 9 tonight, so I don't get to go to the vendor hall, and then so I can't hang out with you guys for dinner either.
So I'm playing before the vendor hall opens and after it closes. Both days, I spent my entire time to make sure I got in the line Wednesday night to get my badge because I need it. Early in the morning. I can't mess around with that. And then your 2 main days are taken up by the tournament, and then you've got Sunday, which is just sad. Like you don't want your one convention day to be Sunday.
No, that's that's the bittersweet day when everyone's packing up and
So I mean, maybe one day, maybe one afternoon or 1 or 2 afternoons, maybe, and then I'm good. I want convention time. I want demo time. I want to buy stuff. I want it, all that.
Yep.
So plus, Golden Demon's gonna be there. I want to have plenty of time to study the entries.
I like making repeat visits to stuff like that when you can go around and see what's been entered. And now that there's a few competitions, since Resin Beast is there and the MCP one is there, which I think also includes. Does it include the Star Wars stuff now? It might.
It might.
And then
Shatterpoint.
Yeah.
Because that Shatterpoint is MCP Star Wars new release that kind of wasn't around
because it's Asmodee or
so it's
Atomic Mass.
Atomic Mass still, I believe. Okay.
Yeah, and they whatever separate, but even then it's like going around and seeing all that along with Golden Demon, and then I guess I like to do. I don't know about you, but we can talk about I guess some of our favorite things. For one, this will be an entirely new venue. So we're gonna have to find new routines.
Oh man, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah,
not knowing like the floor layout like the back of my hand because
we did
because we've been at the Renaissance Schaumburg so many years in a row. It's like I know where all the spots are. Now this is a whole new convention center, a whole new kind of downtown to have to contend with. Finding the hot spots. It's gonna be different.
It is, and so I've got an excitement for that for sure. I'm not one of those who needs, I guess, habit to not be overblown with anxiety or something. But like, so there'll be that. But once we kind of figure out that layout, I know at least I like to do a thing where I walk through the vendor hall sort of quick, but don't really stop it much that first time. And then you visit with the other people later, what they saw, whatever. Go see how other people are doing if they're playing in something. Then I start to think about my purchases,
Right.
And then I start to think about what games
do
I want to demo
to
play.
You walk up to the first stall and you're like, "Ooh, I see something I like." Buy
$300. Yeah.
It's like you missed the rest of it.
Yeah.
Like go take a browse first.
Right.
It's
like house shopping. You don't buy that first one.
I do that while shopping of any kind.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll grab something right away and I'll find something better and I just like swap it on the shelf. No, I never do that. That's you see that happen sometimes. You can tell someone had a decision to make, and there's evidence of their decision where it's like, well, I've got this.
That's why that 16-pack of string cheese next to Lucky Charms. Exactly. Someone changed their mind.
Yeah, right. And decided they couldn't do both.
Yep.
Somehow. But
yeah, and this so there's also a chance that we'll have more stores there than we're used to.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea, right? Is it's not just a bigger venue for more convention goers, but it's also a bigger convention for more events, for more vendors, for a bigger vendor hall, for better layout of the space for sure.
Because they had to split up between a site A and B for a while in Chicago. The site B was a lot of smaller games and content creators and such, but this will now be all back in one. But I'm hoping, I hope that means their vendor hall will be bigger.
Well, we were talking about another convention having a really cool layout where it was enormous, but it was laid out so that there wasn't, dedicated store space separated off from dedicated play space, where it was like, hey, if this vendor both has a game and has stuff to sell, the play tables are right there next to their store, and that's where the events are hosted. What was that? Essen?
It's Essen.
Is laid out
Spiel
like
in
that.
Essen. Yeah.
So they've got kind of a combined space of like, well, here's the Warhammer booth, and right behind it, here's all the Warhammer
Here's
tables
their tournaments,
and their tournaments
right there.
adjacent. Which is, I think, interesting. But I've never experienced it, right?
Yep.
Like I don't know if I'd like that better than saying here's wall to wall just rows of just stuff to buy, and you don't have to worry about navigating through like 100 rows of play tables before you get to the next stop, or the next stop,
or
like
if you're not playing, and maybe they have them roped off or taped off, but you still I got to go 50 yards to get to the next door,
right?
I
know, right? Like I don't know.
So I don't know, and until I experience it, I won't.
Exactly.
I won't know if I like it better. But
yep, indeed.
But it's interesting that they are in a new venue because there weren't murmurings of it the last few years in Schaumburg, but the last couple times we went there, we were like, this layout is kind of dated. Like, I think they need to move the vendor hall into this hall, and they need to move the play. And like,
this play area doesn't really need to be here. It can move off to this other area, and this could be more vendor stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, it's too small. We're just moving.
It's
like, shit, okay.
Yeah.
Because like there was fears that like they weren't going to continue that. I mean, I guess you had that with a lot of the conventions, right? Weird things happen. Like Gen Con, we didn't know if Gen Con was going to stay in Indy
right.
for the next 5 years, but they signed a new contract, whatever. Because it's getting big. Like it's almost too big.
They've had to move so much into Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah.
Now they've connected them because they put the block party between them, and so it's fine. But I know, for example, the new edition of the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, the first available purchase of it was at Gen Con, but to go pick up your copy, you had to go to this underground tunnel sort of that like connects part of downtown to the stadium, and then down there were random vendors.
That's so weird.
And they weren't anything popular.
Just like underground like black market vendors being like, hey man, you trying to buy some magic?
it was more like the like a small town fair,
right? Like
where it was people hawking kind of their own like homemade stuff. Like, hey, here's these cool counters I came up with for your role playing game, or like lesser cosplay stuff was more like scarves but it was there was a ton of it down there, and it was like a whole different world. It's like you didn't know Gen Con was going on when you were down here, and then you got over the stadium. And it's a stadium. So out on the field area, they had some tournaments of some games going on. But to walk to where they had the D&D books, you had to go around like a quarter of the stadium on the outside, or you're in the building, but around the outside of the seating, and you're just walking and walking. It's like, well, there's a random maintenance guy working on a piece of equipment. Well, there's a hot dog vendor that they decided to open because there's people here. And then you walk, and
that's smart though.
It is.
If I was that hot dog stand, like, I know that how many thousands of people are going to walk by me during lunchtime. I'm opening up for hot dogs.
Yeah, and they had dedicated ones. Like the main eatery area in Lucas Oil was just open, period. But then it was like, and then you had to go behind this area that's like under stairs, do a 90-degree hook back around, and there's a regular folding table with the stack of brand new players' handbooks.
That is so weird.
It's like,
what a weird choice. Like they couldn't have stacked them anywhere along that path.
Right.
Like why there?
Yep.
That is
or,
strange.
At like the Wizards area. I mean, I know that hall is busy.
Like maybe they expected like, oh, well, there's going to be 1 million people in this line. We need it to be long. We needed the destination, like the actual pickup spot to be far away.
Yeah, maybe.
Because remember when we went to Gen Con during COVID and they made us snake around the entire convention to get our like cards checked, and then stand in a different line that snaked around the convention in a different direction just to get our badges.
Yeah.
Like that was, and remember how I forgot mine?
Yep.
That was a fun day because I was like, hey, I can get back to our Airbnb. No problems. Give me the keys. Got completely lost. Came back and was like, I don't know where I am. Found you guys. You're like, you guys got it? Did you get it? I was like, I don't know where I drove to. I just decided to come back and
so I did not.
No. Yeah, that was a time.
Yeah,
but before times.
So that was kind of like evidence that has outgrown the indie spot, but they've made do. The city seems to really want to keep it. And in this case,
they're dedicating the stadium.
Yeah.
As part of it, because like previous years, it was like, oh, there's football stuff happening at the same time.
Preseason, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, you can't use the stadium because we're using it, and now it's like, don't schedule during preseason because we might need it for all these nerds.
Yeah, so they moved Gen Con back earlier to that July 31st to August 3rd stretch, and now they don't bump into football. Now they can use it.
Yeah,
and it accommodates it fine.
I think it'd be cool
out.
if they utilize the stadium more.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of tournament tables in there. I don't know what the games were, but like it looks like it's getting used. So that's it. This though, we'll see. Downtown Milwaukee, I suppose, has a lot of possibilities. It's not a place I'm familiar with, but the venue that we've seen looks big. Mm-hmm. So I am excited for that.
There is less on-site accommodations, which is unfortunate because it is so nice staying on site.
It is
at the Schaumburg, but lots of stuff nearby to give you a short trip downtown, and there's lots of public transit and whatnot. So I'm not too worried about it. Maybe further down the line when we know what it's like.
We know what it's like,
you know, maybe there's like across the street hotels that we can get for deals earlier before the blocks open, or whatever. So we'll figure it out. We'll crack that code again.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, really excited about Adepticon. Really weird, just how quick it's coming. Because like this is the latest they've ever done registration. I think this is so close to it. I mean, we're 2 months out. Like before it was like, oh well, register. Here's the event. It was
usually November-ish.
The event drops. Yeah. The event list is going to drop early November. Registration's early December.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you got a month to pour over to see what they're going to have. Now it's like, hey, here's the event list a week before. We're registering here mid-January. It's like, that is.
There must be something they're confident in.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll see. But we'll all be doing that tomorrow or yesterday, depending on when you're listening to this.
Yep. So, and then we've obviously going to have a preview there, which we have to think about.
Yep.
Speaking of the previews, Games Workshop related previews, there's an LVO coming up.
LVO
next week, which I think we're going to try to watch live and maybe even stream that over on YouTube. So if you want to join us for that, we'll be there.
11 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. midnight Eastern. So for those who are going to be up to watch it.
I'll be up.
I mean, I get the idea. It's in Vegas. It's only 9 p.m. there at the time, so
makes sense. Because it'd be weird if you did it earlier than that. That'd be really weird. Anyway, but the sort of the announcement that they gave us for the LVO thing was very misleading, as it turns out. There was like a silhouette kind of display of like, hey, join us for the LVO preview. Here's some stuff to come. But it wasn't, I guess, based on the social media posts and stuff from it, that actually wasn't the stuff that was going to be at LVO. Those were releases that were going to be sometime in 2025. They clarified it, and they're like, oh, by the way, this isn't the stuff that's coming in LVO. This is specifically the silhouettes of stuff coming in 2025. Because people were really confused because there were a couple of things that in those 5 silhouettes we got that just didn't fit any of the games that were supposed to be showed off at LVO.
Right.
And so like people were coming up with just wild stories and like, man, people online, when they come up with an idea, they are set with it. I'll tell you. Yeah. It's some people.
Well, and then you can tell when you meet the people in person who read that idea, because then they regurgitate it as though it's fact.
Right. So one of them was a couple. We'll talk about it too, but a couple interesting ideas. I think we will see a few of the things at LVO specifically come up. Some of them might be at Adepticon, but I think 3 of them that we saw specifically we're going to see next week. And that's going to be Lucius the Eternal. Because he's got his like cutlass and his whip. I mean, it's like, who else is that going to be? Emperor's Children's.
And we know
Emperor's Children's coming.
Yeah.
Whip, saber, cutlass,
and they've plasticked all the classic cast heroes.
100%.
He's still waiting. Yeah, why not?
So I'm positive that's him, and we're going to probably see him next week. There was what looked like a new skeleton on a skeletal horse. It's like, okay. The rumors of like death rattle getting a
you've already called that,
so 100% gonna happen. There was do
you think he was representative of a unit or just a guy?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be a unit. I mean, we got a new character on horse not that long ago.
Okay.
There is a new White King on skeletal steed.
So these might be Black Knights type.
I think they're a Black Knight type. I mean, that's what they were always called. I assume they'll be called that, and not like Graveguard on skeletal horses or something. Something like that. I hope it's just Blackguard. But they very much have the new kind of motifs, like the big winged vampire helmets and stuff like that. So I can tell based on that silhouette that's exactly what that is. And then there was a couple that were like, these are questionable, because one of them was like a weird worm thing that was just odd.
It looked like a Pokemon.
A little bit.
It looks like a Pokemon.
A little bit, yeah. And it's like, well, what games would have weird crap like that? Underworlds.
Yep.
Warcry.
Yep.
Necromunda. Ash Waste, because they have lots of weird gribblies in that. And it's like, those are the three that...
Also, though, endless spells.
Endless spells.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. There were rumors of sort of an arachnid sort of, what do you call it, incarnate that was never released. I mean, maybe something.
Yeah, and
that.
The other thing that those silhouettes don't tell us is what scale they are.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of try to guess based on like the base that they show. Maybe how big it is, but it's not easy. So I mean, that's potential. And then the last thing was, I thought it was pretty obvious.
They showed a looked like a what's that?
So there's a siege automata that was in it, but that was one of the contentious ones, I think.
Right.
So that was one of the ones that
because Horus Heresy was not listed as one of the games they're showing off.
So that was one of the ones that confused everyone. Was like, well, how can it be for Horus Heresy if Horus Heresy isn't listed as being one of the things? It's like, oh, well then surely Tzeentch is getting their
Forge robe thing or whatever, right.
Or whatever. Like, there were rumors floating around that Tzeentch was going to get chaos corrupted. Possessed machines. Obviously, this is it.
Must be
it.
It's
finally happening. This is going to be Tzeentch demon engines, starting with an AdMech.
Right.
Like, huh? I forget what the actual pattern of it is, but it's one of the siege automatas. They have the one, the Thanatar maybe, where it's got like the Grav Bombard.
Yes, it's that one.
There was like
class.
two other guns.
Yeah.
That were on that shoulder mount, where it's like almost like a neutron beam and then like a las cannon. Like there was a couple of different ones, or maybe it was a grav cannon.
And it's their biggest class of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I saw that, I was like, that's 100% what that is. Yeah. And I went and I looked it up. It's like Thanatar, siege automaton. It's like the photo of it came up from the Forge World Resin one. I'm like, I mean, this is it. I can pretty much overlay this onto the other one in like the silhouette matches.
Yeah.
There's no chaos corruption. There's no bits of spikes and horns and everything. Nothing.
Because if that silhouette was supposed to be something that represents the games they said they're going to show off, the only way that otherwise fits is if there were parts we weren't seeing, or they were cutting out that led to like dark Mechanicus-y.
Maybe.
But I think it is just straight up a plastic version of that.
Or they just expanded AdMech to have
or they
more
randomly
robots,
expanded AdMech.
Which maybe, but they don't like to do that.
Right.
They don't like crossing games. They don't want anything from Horus Heresy in 40K anymore.
Right. It'll probably be they're just plasticking the kit.
Yeah.
And at some point.
And they have plastic versions of the other ones.
Yeah.
The other weapon patterns of it. It's just this one specifically hasn't gotten plastic yet. Now it is. That's all it's going to be. And then, but they did clarify that in a I don't know, a Facebook post or something that was like, oh, this is more than just the LVO in these silhouettes.
Yeah.
That's like, okay. Well,
they're just teasing.
In my mind, that 100% confirmed.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if at this preview event they don't tease more at the end.
Right.
They do the one more thing to show you before we go.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
Oh, I think it was an old world Bray Shaman.
Oh, right.
I knew like Bray Shaman.
Because it was cloaked. It had horns going straight back.
Yeah, but it was completely like solid silhouette. There was no negative space, which means it's resin.
Single piece resin.
Yeah. It's gonna be like our new resin Bray Shaman for Beasts of Chaos in Old World.
They're supposed to be getting their Arcane Journal.
I mean, I don't know if they announced it, but we know the two armies that got cut from AOS are going back.
Yeah.
Like, and they're one of them. So it's like, okay, well, this just leads.
And there's only like 11 total armies or whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
So I mean, it's just gonna be a Bray Shaman. That's it. Nothing exciting. Maybe a named one. No, it didn't look like a named one. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, we've seen that treatment with Old World, though, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, well, here we port your rules back over. Very little changes sometimes, and here's a couple of new characters, probably both resin, maybe a new monster in plastic, but then we're done.
Well, and I don't know how people could harbor really ill will towards that. This might seem like a technicality, but it's like, people who were no longer playing the game, that's half, not all, but that's half of how the game dies, right? And then they were like, oh, they took my game from me. They complained about it for years. It's like, well, now your game's back.
Right.
We've given you a set of rules that feel very much like it used to, but polished. And we're giving you a couple new models here and there.
Yeah.
And like,
but also making the old kits that we cut available
again.
And a lot of them were fine because they were very close to End Times, which say what you want about End Times, it was not successful, right? Mm-hmm.
It got more people interested in the story than had been in years.
A lot of plastic got injected into the game.
Yeah.
But it was at a time when the interest had waned so much that not 20 or 30 new kits released around the same time, including those like really cheap cavalry units, the Drakespawn Knights and those kinds that were like dirt cheap for some reason. They were like $15 for 5 models. It was absurd. Like not even those kinds of releases could save the game.
No,
right?
But I think they knew End Times wasn't going to.
Right.
And when you think of the timeline between that and when AOS came, it's like they had AOS in development. It seems.
Yeah.
I knew that, and we've beat that equally skeletal horse to death. But like, Warhammer Fantasy was in the red for a long time, and they tried a few things. They tried 2 other editions to save it, and it just didn't. So now it's like, instead of making that financial commitment, they're like, well, we're just going to support it then ongoing. Mm-hmm. So you old timers who still play that, maybe anybody new who jumps in, you don't really have to get much new if you've got it. And now you can play it. We'll support the rules. We'll release a couple cool models here and there. I don't think that means we'll see no new plastic.
And their arcane journals are not very expensive.
No.
Which might be the best thing to like come out of it. Is that idea.
Use that idea.
But yeah.
So I don't know if we have more to speculate on what we'll see in LVO. We've talked about it in the last episode, what we think we'll see. Yep. So after that, it'll really be, we'll have our discussion during, and then we'll probably speculate.
Yeah, because that will pretty much bring us up to most of what we've seen for roadmaps of like what's early in 2025.
Yeah, so unless they now add on to it with this.
Yep. Which I would love to see that if they expanded what to expect beyond what we're getting here. I mean, we do know through some like leak stuff. I think I sent you something about that with a couple Underworlds releases coming, and one of which is a new Gloomspite thing that kind of coincide with their book coming.
Yeah,
super cool models, by the way. I looked at them again. Yeah. So there's a leak for like another Monster Hunter Underworld's warband. They're all like hunting monsters, but there aren't any monsters. They're fighting each other. It's kind of bizarre because there's like all of the Warcry season in the realm of beasts were all about like fighting monsters and hunting monsters and drinking their blood and all that weird stuff. But then there's like, well, there are no real monsters in Warcry very often. And then like they get ported over to AOS and it's like, oh, Monster Hunter counter unit. It's like, monsters aren't the meta. Like, it's just really strange because it's like so many armies had it. I mean, Fire Slayer's got one, Cruel Boy's got one, Soulblight Gravelord's got one. Like, it's just like, what's with all these monster hunting units? It's really strange. But there's a new one coming. I forget what it was called, but it's got like a smaller troll in it with some other goblins.
Looked loads of character.
Yeah.
And that's one thing those Underworld's warbands just, I mean, they make anywhere from 3 to 7 just character models is really what they are.
Yeah.
And they look great.
Some of the early ones I think might have had more.
Well, and I think they're especially attractive to painters.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay with whether it was its own category at Golden Demon or folded into AOS unit.
I was actually thinking about that the other day, and it's like, what's the army that's gotten like the faction that's gotten the most warbands for Underworld? And I know you haven't kept up with it very much, but I was thinking about it a lot. Stormcast, obviously.
Stormcast.
Every single release has a Stormcast warband. They might have 6, 7. It's a lot. But then I was thinking of like, well, what's the next one? I mean, this will be the 4th one for Gloomspites, I believe. But I was like, no, Soulblight's got more.
Soulblight.
They had some sneaky ones in there. So they had the initial one, which was the Sepulchral Guard. Remember that one? Which had like the priest and like the Reaper skeleton. You know, that unit. And again, like the skeleton with the spear and the cloak. That warband. After that, they had the I know the Crimson Court, everyone's favorite vampire unit.
Yep.
Those 4 vampires. They also had King Velmorn's sons, with like the hulking giant skeleton and then like the White King.
Yep.
But then there was 2 other sneaky ones in there that you might not remember. There was like a Frankenstein sort of vampire with his Frankenstein zombies. Remember that?
Okay.
Where his mouth is Dentalos the Exile was his name, and his like mouth was sewn shut. He was a vampire with like just zombies. And then there was one really weird one where it was like a necromancer and the husband of the necromancer who was like a werewolf. Remember that one?
No.
Okay.
That one I don't.
That
Okay.
one wasn't that long ago, but I was like, I think technically that was Soulblight Gravelords. It was super strange. And so they have at least 5. And so I was like, well, crap, that might be up there for the highest, the second highest. I can't think of anything else that's more.
Khorne's had 3.
Yep. Most armies have had like 2 or 3 at this point.
Yeah.
I have
Skaven's had 3.
3. Maybe at least 3. They had the Plague one.
They had the
They had the Assassin one.
They had the original Lord Queek looking one.
Yeah, the Warlord one.
Yeah.
Is that all?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Nurgle's,
they had a new one recently that was Scryer.
Okay.
With the little mini
guy in the
doom
mini
wheel.
wheel.
I think they've had 4 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's covering their clans, though. That's great.
Yep.
Nurgle's had 2. Tzeentch has had...
They had the one Pan's Labyrinth guy.
Yeah.
They had the original one with the Magister.
Yep.
And I think that might be it.
That might be
just
it.
those 2.
Slaves has had 1?
Iron Jaws. Let me think. No, they had
Slaves to Darkness?
2. So there was the
they had the Lady Warlord, the
Yep.
Sorcerer, and her homie.
Yeah. They had a Dark Oath one.
Dark Oath one. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Do I have that one?
I think you do.
have that one. Okay.
We might. I think you've only had 2 though. Yeah, Slaves only had 2. Weird.
Just for an army that's
I think
so big.
Iron Jaws has had 3.
Yeah.
That seems about right. Because there was a brute one. There was
I think they've had 2. I think they've had
Arboys.
2 armored. orc
2
ones.
brute ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, every army has been represented at this point. It's
Yeah.
just how many, and some of them are up there. That's for sure. Stormcast, so many, like 7. I swear. It's so many.
Every season, every whatever. Yeah, they get one.
But yeah, so there's more of that coming. We still haven't heard about Warcry though. And
haven't.
It's very very strange how they're just so silent on it. How it's just
they're not on the list of what we expect in the preview.
Not. No,
okay.
but it's weird though because I think in social media and stuff people are asking, and it's another Cursed City situation where it's just they just pretend no one is saying anything. They just ignore it and move on.
Well,
it's just really strange.
And I remember one of the Rolling 6 team members felt like the championship level events were too stressful, so he didn't participate. And he did play, decided last few weeks leading up to it to play the Warcry event, and he had a blast.
Yeah.
And then when we went over to check how he was doing, it was like the tables were full, people were playing it. Must be. I only played like a demo of it the first time, and it seems like a lot of fun. The models are cool for it, but yeah, it's weird. We've gone months of just ghosted on the game, so don't know.
I mean, maybe we'll get something else more robust, because that's my only thing with Warcry is it's pretty simplified, right? Because it's similar to I don't know, like Kill Team. Some of your other skirmishy games where there's fewer dice gates.
Yep.
Right. So there's like, you've got no save. You've got no like armor to have to deal with. There's no like hit roll. It's just like I make this number of attacks. Does it beat? Do the attacks beat your toughness?
Well, you need to roll symbols, don't you? Like
so that one's not symbols.
Okay.
It's still numbers because you still have strength and toughness on your models.
The sword and the
So it's like number of attacks, strength, toughness, and then it's got like damage numbers for hits and crits. And so like you have fewer gates to have to deal with. You just basically the balancing point.
And you have a hit point pool.
Yeah, you have like a kind of a larger hit point pool. Yeah. And so it's like it's a little more simplified. It's quick rolling, but which makes the game less granular, less.
It's on a very small table, and the terrain has got
yeah.
specific measurements to
Yep.
do specific movements. Yeah.
So, but like I could see them doing something more robust. Like I said, it kind of ventures into the realm of like small, quick, scale game of as like Spearhead, and so maybe they're not wanting to do it anymore because it's too similar.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm hoping like they do something with like a role play type thing, right? Like kind of how Necromunda has come back for 40K.
Well, and they might do that. Might be what they change it
right,
to.
and I would love that,
like a prog system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
because I mean, you wouldn't call it Mordheim,
no,
but there are places within the mortal realms that are hotbeds of conflict.
they could even still call it Warcry because there's a lot of people who have that name, like at the ready.
Yeah,
and you just if it's a new edition, you say we're changing how we do it. Right. Here's the game now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, now you can buy this war gear when your clan earns so many of these stones they find or whatever. Yeah,
right, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be down with that, and then like unlocking traits, unlocking feats, unlocking skills, whatever you want to call them.
Because then they can even make random Warcry models that are like mercenaries, like whatever.
Absolutely, and they've kind of done a little bit of that. So I mean, they have ventured very far from where it started. With I mean, they were releasing tomes and like just trying to shove everything into Warcry for a while.
Yeah, they were making like army proper stuff you could play.
All these characters from the armies that you can pull in and have in your Warcry thing. Here's all these mercenaries you can have. Here's all these leaders. Here's all these. It was a lot of stuff. But if you're going that far, it's like, well, let's think about this over again and try one more time.
Yeah, I would rather it has all its own unique models like Necromunda, and then you can RPG it. It doesn't have to be exactly like it. Keep some mechanics from Warcry you like. But then, give them a, or even consider an app or a dry erase sheet style card or whatever, and then that way, if they level up or whatever the thing is, that gives people something to do, and then you could have versions of that at the big events. But yeah,
and tracking between games.
It's either they're overhauling it or they're scrapping it. Either way, we're on. I don't know how many episodes now we've mentioned what happened to Warcry.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. Because, like I said, the limited time that I've played it, I've bought so many Warcry models.
I 100% believe though that a Hashut faction for AOS is in the works. Yeah. It has to be.
I have so many Warcry models.
Yeah,
like, it might be one of my most purchased products from Games Workshop in the
I think
years.
Underworlds was for me for a while.
I mean, I was getting a lot of those too. But it's just like I like cool models.
Yeah.
I like the painting projects.
Well, and that commitment purchase wise isn't so bad. Where it's like, okay, I just got a whole team for $60, and like that doesn't feel bad. And each one's a character, and
right.
I mean, even these character units they're doing in AOS feels like that, where it's like Gunnar Brand's unit.
Which I have to wonder if some of those were, I don't know, conceptualized as a warband for a different game.
Might have been,
and then they were brought in. I mean, similar to how the Vrykos Dynasty and Soulblight. I'm positive we're supposed to be expansions to Curse City.
Curse City.
They're supposed to release for that is like, here's the new wing of the Curse City where you fight this villain who's from the same family of that city. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like they scrapped all that, and that was all gone for when they just released them all. Here's 7 named vampires that all do different things. It's like, well, that was weird. I wonder why they did that. And then it's like, oh, well, if you want to play them in Curse City, here's some free rules for it. It's like, oh, that was why. But with similar how they did the Underworld warbands for a long time in AOS, they had these very unique rules, and they were very powerful units, right? That were designed for Warcry or for Underworlds, but were very playable, right? And so I wonder if they had the idea of that, and they're like, well, why don't we design some actual not Underworld warbands for AOS, and then just give them those kind of cool, flavorful rules. That way, if a season rotates or like we cut the game, they're not tied to Underworlds.
Yeah.
And they're not a product we have to rebox if we want to re-release it. Now it's like it's for that game, and it'll stay in the game that is AOS, even if those smaller games go away. And it's like, maybe. I mean, there's a couple of them so far, and they kind of feel that way. You know, the level of detail of the models and just like the turned up stats feel very much like 3rd edition Underworld warbands. So I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if they just
something to think about.
They just might hit weird crossroads, like between design and whatever I want to say, their production,
right?
Where it's like they really like the design, and it's like, well, maybe this should be in the main game. Well, maybe we wanted this to be in Warcry or Underworlds or whatever, and then it's like they have to decide. And
right, and I think both of those warbands did coincide with Black Library releases too. They both had like books that came out or like shows that came out at very similar times, so it was like coordinated.
Which we're finally, by the way, supposed to get a new episode of Hammer and Bolter.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
Like 2 years.
I know they've been doing other shows, but it's like, I thought that would be the one that's always ongoing. They would just have episodes made for that because they're only like 15 minutes long.
Right.
Yeah, finally getting a new one.
Yeah. But also on the horizon of things we do know, Astra Militarum for 40K.
The pre-order for the Krieg box is coming up.
The Codex is coming up, yeah, for the Kriegers. But also just their book is imminent. And they're kind of hinting at some of the things that are coming with that book to revamp things like tank commanders and how commanders work and orders and especially the new Krieg. They're really trying to hit the Krieg home because they are fan favorites. Like they are.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would say the fandom of the Krieg runs deeper than the fandom of Cadians.
Oh sure.
There might be more
there's
people.
fans of Cadia, and they like the Cadia stands and all, and Cadia Falls and all that. But it's like, I think most people played Cadia because that's what you could get in plastic,
right?
And you couldn't get Krieg that way, and Forge World was outrageous to buy,
right?
And now it's like you're getting this, not just like here's one kit and then some bits to swap your regular guard kits. It's like, no, here's a pile of Krieg stuff coming.
So there's an infantry kit plus the specialist infantry kit that was for Kill Team.
Yeah.
Are two different units.
Yep.
So they have different roles. One's like an engineer unit, one's like a normal infantry unit. They have their own special weapon, or heavy weapon teams that are not just here's the Cadian one, but with a different head.
Put this emblem on it.
Right. It's like completely different weapons. It's like thud guns and stuff like that the normal guys don't have. They've got their own characters. They're the Krieg Death Masters, whatever they're called. I don't remember what they're called. They're versions of Commander/Commissar, I think, hybrids.
Yeah.
They've got their own cavalry. It's a pretty
and that looks like it might
expansive-
make a couple different things. So
which I've always liked the Death Riders. So when they came out with the Attilan Rough Riders, it was like, oh, that's cool. They're not Death Riders, but it's still cool. So so that's pre-ordered now.
Yep.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you're always gonna hit a home run when you give a massive plastic refresh to a line of humans.
Especially if it was something that we haven't really gotten in a very long time. Like Sisters, right? When Sisters got updated.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah, and they did it a couple of editions. It was like 8th and 9th. They got 2 big waves of models. And then with this, we're seeing it where Cadia got a massive refresh in 9th, plus Rough Riders. And then now in 10th, we're getting all the Krieg stuff. And so really Astra Militarum getting a massive plastic line.
Yep.
Super nice for them.
Not to mention just a bunch of new kits.
Yep.
New tank, new heavy weapons, new. It's a decent amount of stuff.
It is. Really nice.
Lord Solar, the new.
That's what makes you want to get into an army though. When it's like, man, now their whole line's kind of new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that's
It is. It is. It is. And I'll be interested to see. Rules-wise, I'm not that familiar with Astra Militarum. I know Tank Commanders has been a exploitable thing in the past.
Well, because the rules for Tank Commanders have always been too nebulous. Like the benefits of taking a Tank Commander were always well worth the points you paid for it. Because it was either... the things that they could issue the commands to were too universal, or they were too good, or for a while there, it was you take a tank commander because it's basically a points upgrade to a tank to give it bonus to its ballistic skill.
Yeah,
it just makes a better main battle tank. That's That's why you take them. You take 3 tank commanders instead of 3 Lehman Russes because they're just better.
Yeah, and I think there's been iterations where there was like a cap on how many, and then there wasn't, and then there, and so, but we always see it.
And then it was like, okay, they can issue commands to themselves or each other, but not themselves, and so you just keep them nearby, and they basically are issuing orders to themselves.
Yeah,
and it's just like a commander should be commanding things, not like his crew within the tank.
I demand myself to shoot better.
Yeah, it's just like, come on. Like, if anything, the tank commander shouldn't shoot better because it's got the same kind of a crew as the other tanks do.
Yep.
But he can issue orders to nearby, squadron
non-commanders.
vehicles. Yeah. So I'm hoping that we get more close to that, and it's been like that for a while now. They've kind of reflected that,
and they learn. They learn from mistakes, and sometimes the solution ends up not that satisfactory. Like it just ends up like I don't like to use the word nerf, but it just ends up like a very vanilla version, and people are like, oh, now this isn't a thing anymore. But this, it's like, well, they've tried it 2 or 3 ways, and every time the player base within seconds found a way to exploit it, and that's all you saw played. So I feel like they're taking that into account. Listen to the designer's commentary if they talk about it, which I'm sure they will. And you'll hear their thought process. I hope for Astra Militarum they get to play. They could play with either all their sexy new Cadia toys or all their sexy new Krieg toys, and it'll be great. Need good guard out there.
Yeah,
I think it's good for the game.
3 Khorne warbands.
There's 3 Khorne warbands in Underworlds.
I think so.
Yeah, it was the Blood Reavers were the first one, the Blood Warriors were the second one, and then this priest with the Hulk and the whatever were the.
That's right.
Yeah. And that one, in the recent balance patch for Underworlds, I guess it had like 4 things taken away from it. I guess it was too good in the new season, so they had to tone it down.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. The one it's like, oh yeah, that unit. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, very different look for Blades of Khorne, which makes me excited for when they come around to get an update.
Because they'll get new Blood Warriors, hopefully units of 5.
Yeah,
they
might get stuff we won't even think about.
Right. I mean, yeah,
because those 3 models alone look so different. But
I could see getting new Blood Crushers, which are the Mortals riding Juggers,
because those are from Fantasy.
So old.
Yeah,
and we had seen what a Juggernaut looks like updated in 40K.
Right. So much better.
It's the same demon.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could absolutely take that. Both in World Eaters for a unit of
the demon version,
or I mean, even the mortal version.
Oh yeah.
Like because they got a character, they didn't get a unit of
right.
Of riders, but either game could use riders, mortals riding Juggernauts. Would be super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they'll get some updates, and they'll get some aesthetic updates that we don't expect.
And I'll tell you what, the other kit that they have that is unique to them for AOS, which is the Skulltaker Wrathmonger kit.
Well, that came out during End Times.
Was that an End Times kit?
They came with square.
I forgot. They came with squares.
Squares,
That's
yeah.
Right. Oh man, that kit's so old. That kit sucks.
It's awful to put together.
It's
by the way,
so bad.
Yeah,
I did it because I wanted to kit bash a unit of Khorne marked Chosen for my.
Sure.
Slaves of Darkness. So I had gotten multiple units of normal, undivided, Chosen, and used the extra bits to make another unit of Khorne marked ones using the weapons and heads and stuff like that. But man, the design on that kit is so old style.
Yeah, which is weird because again, it came out during End Times,
right.
But then like the plastic chains for their flails, and then the weird chunky poses for the other version of them that have the blades.
It was just how their like muscles fit together in their like torsos was just so awkward. Like they fit together in very specific ways.
It's almost like they designed them years before they got to that.
Right. And it was just
when you come by the way into Total War.
And by the way, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's
now they're in Fantasy. Yeah.
But it's also funny to note that like when people complain about like, oh, well, I don't like monopose models. Those models were monopose.
Yeah.
There was no like, I'm going to turn this arm so it looks like he's not holding the sword in front of his own face.
Right.
And it was like, no, you're not, because his weird like bicep, tricep, whatever this claw is.
Only went into the shoulder one way.
Yeah, exactly. And only to the one very specific torso in one very specific way. And it was just like, It was so hard. I had to green stuff so much on those models to get them to work. Oh man, that was rough.
Most of what that kit ended up good for me was the fin heads.
The extra heads.
You used them for other corn models.
Yep. You throw them on anything else.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Maybe they'll keep them around. Maybe they won't. But I just think we don't know when Blades of Corn are coming, by the way. But I expect they're another one getting a big haul of stuff.
Could use another named character because they've got Scarbrand. I think that's about it.
The demon who gets name dropped to get his butt kicked in every story. Yeah. They technically still do they still have Scar Bloodwrath?
I think they did they cut him?
So his original story.
They got rid of Scylla and Fingrim.
Yep.
The corn spawn.
Scylla is firmly back in Old World / Blood Bowl.
He's gone.
And but Scar Bloodwrath
might still be around.
So his model came out during End Times. His story existed before that, where he was a Norskin. He actually was the head of a Norskin tribe that worshipped corn, or he did anyway. I forget what that tribe's called, but like they just did the thing where they lazily carried him into AOS. But he hasn't served a story purpose.
Right.
Corgus Cole's been gone, who was an AOS character.
Yep. So he is now just a mighty load of corn.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if they port Scar Bloodwrath, Wrathmongers, whatever the Demon Blade ones are, back to Old World.
Maybe.
And then they bring us a new Corgus Cole of some kind.
Oh, love that.
Yeah. And then an aesthetic that looks closer to that latest Underworld's Warband for stuff.
I guess Keranos is a named demon. Skull Taker is now not a named character. Similar to how in Tzeentch, Changeling is not the Changeling. It's just a Changeling of Tzeentch. Yeah. Or who's the knight with the homunculus growing off of him? Curseling?
Yeah.
Curseling is now not the Curseling.
Right.
He's not Village.
Right.
He is a Curseling.
Yep.
And so they've kind of like genericked a bunch of characters.
The heralds.
The same thing happened with Skull Taker. He's a Skull Taker, which is a duelist specialization
Herald of Corn.
Of a Herald of Corn.
Yeah.
So
could be. What I think that Underworld's Warband might point towards an aesthetic change for them.
Well, we had the Ritualist Priest.
Yep.
Standalone kit release, and it was very similar to the Herald of Drum or whatever his name is. The almost like feathered headdress, a little Aztec kind of looking.
Well,
sacrificial.
So I was going to say if you think of that era, they did a lot of that, a lot of human sacrifice.
They did a lot of let the blood flow down the altar, down a groove down the thing to.
Yep.
Bestow the land with blessings and stuff. Yeah.
And the Blood Reavers, which were unique to AOS, were they were the corn version of the human cultists, which every of the mono-deity factions have, but theirs were like blood drinkers and cannibals. Like so, I think if they lean harder into that priest style, that dark magic, not magic, because they don't use sorcery, and then you change the heavily armored stuff to possibly look, I don't know, if the Blood Warriors are too plain, I'm sure they'll still have some version of a Chaos Warrior or Chosen type unit, but I could even see if the other two that were in Drom's Underworld's Warband, like the hulking thing, you could have a unit of these monstrous corn guys.
Maybe those the new Skull Takers.
Right.
Because they're like, that guy's going to take some skulls. There's nothing going to stop him.
Yeah.
Maybe they do drastically change the aesthetic. Maybe they lean more into, again, like we see when they try to lower the armor on things, they go sort of shamanistic for chaos. Maybe we'll see like more barbarian style tattered cloth and robe over armor, some armor, chain armor, lighter armor, be for corn. So it's aesthetically very different from a Chaos Warrior who is in this Hellforged plate.
Right.
We don't want to just have corn Hellforged plate warriors. Because that's kind of what Blood Warriors are. They've got finned hoods, but they're just in plate armor like a Chaos Warrior. Branch out and differentiate them. Kind of like how the Blight Kings are so different from a Chaos Warrior.
Yeah.
They are not anywhere close to the same, style.
No.
I mean, maybe they wear armor. That's how they're similar.
Well, and you can look at like the Slanesh ones same way. They're 2 wound foot soldiers. The armor's very different now. and their blades are very different. So they can totally do that, and that just might be those might be down the road a bit, but I could see them making Khorne very AOSified.
I think about how like the actual,
and unfortunately that might mean they end up buying them all over again.
Yeah, I know. But the word bearer, like Khorne berserkers, are space marines, right? But they've taken off pieces of their armor. Their arms are showing, right? Like their rippling biceps are showing. Like
it's like they want less weight to swing the axe harder.
They don't have a worse armor save, which is good,
right?
But like aesthetically, it's like they are less armored.
Yeah,
they're more relying on their own strength than relying on the technology or the armor itself.
And they're Khorne and whatever priest is giving them either some form of
juicing them up.
And so if you have these hulking nut jobs who are just running out there, basically blood roided, now you can show that in the models. Yeah. We know they don't have limits on how they can design these now, so who knows?
That'd be super cool. I'd love to see that as a design change.
So this, by the way, is pure wish listing. We have no idea that Khorne's on the horizon anytime soon, but
it will eventually get an update. This is what I'm hoping for.
Every edition's about 3 years long. Every army gets touched. Yeah. So
eventually. But that aside, old models is one thing, but armies just not having enough of a roster is a bigger problem. So I would very much like to see some of the underrepresented armies just get a bigger roster, because there's a third of them are just underrepresented.
and some of them are entirely new to AOS, but they just haven't expanded on the first design.
Yeah,
and so every edition we come around, it's like, oh, they got a book and a dude. Like, come on.
Yeah,
that gets people interested, is when you have a lot of variety in an army.
Well, especially big events where it's big events, including a big army release. Like I love seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like shit. Yeah, let's get into that.
Well, and just like with the Krieg box we're getting, and many more before it, that's a great way to do it too. It's like, well, before the release, here is like 6 new kits or more, and we'll put them all in this box for you to get a little bit of them right off the bat at a slight discount, and early access to the book. But I want more of this. I want more of that style of release for armies that really need touched. Like I'm sure Eldar is going to get something like that because they're getting so many new kits.
Yeah, they're getting all those aspects. They're getting all those Phoenix Lords.
Yeah.
Like, what if it was a box that's like, get all 5 Phoenix Lords in one release? Like, that would sell like crazy.
Yeah.
Like if it was like aspect host. And it was a little bit of every, like one box of every aspect and their Phoenix
because even if you just did the new ones, it'd be like you temple host or aspect chamber or whatever they want to call it. Just make up stuff. Yeah. And they try to include the new models, and it's like Phoenix Lord and new Warp Spiders, Phoenix Lord and new Fire Dragons, Phoenix Lord and new.
Well, I'm not sure they're going to be doing versus boxes anymore, because that's. I don't know.
This is just for Eldar.
I know, but like think about when like Jane Czar and Drazar came out.
Right.
They were a versus box with brand new models for both armies.
Banshees and Incubi. Yeah.
And it was super cool. It was like, this is the only way you can get it. Here's 2 named characters facing off against one another. But they're not going to do that kind of thing ever again.
Probably not.
And so, like, I don't know. Doing like a massive multiple named characters in the same box, I don't see it. I think maybe they'll break it up into smaller boxes where it's like the specific, maybe even early before they release them separate. Look at like the Lion, right? When they released Lionel Johnson, he was with a group of Blade Guard veterans.
Blade Guard vets.
6 Blade Guard vets, Inner Circle, whatever. And it was like the only way you could get it initially. I'm thinking maybe more like that, where it's like each Phoenix Lord comes with like 2 5-man units of his aspects or her aspects, and that's the first time you can get them, and then they'll be released.
They might, or if they do a Krieg style box set for Eldar, it won't have the named characters in them. It'll just be, here's the new units.
Maybe. Those are always like temporary.
They are,
right? And so I could see them initially doing it with all the named guys in it. But think how much money would be in that box. That'd be like.
But it saves them on packaging.
Yeah.
So like. Because the Krieg stuff, for example, will eventually all be in its own packaging. But for now, they're going to let you get 1 of each kit all in one box.
Maybe 2 of the infantry
or whatever. But all in one box. And I could see, since Eldar's getting a lot, they do something like that. If Khorne gets something like we're talking about down the road, they get something like, it's like, here's a big box, whatever, $200 it is.
Yeah.
6 kits in there. I'm never mad at that. For my army stuff, I mean, when the slaves did that,
absolutely.
it was like,
every time.
Dark Oath, it was the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. So again, we are streaming next week live LVO Facebook.
Thursday night.
Facebook. Ugh. YouTube. Check us out there.
The tubes.
We are also going to be announcing I'm coming up with a graphic at the moment for our new painting challenge that we're going to be having going on.
Challenge.
Hopefully for the year, we'll have a different challenge each time. I'm thinking tiers, maybe even make it like, here's the basic challenge, here's a hard challenge if you want to challenge yourself even further. Things like limited color palettes and, technique challenges, technique restrictions, no airbrushes, no dry brushings for some things, whatever the thing is. I think I might do like 2 different levels of challenge even.
Well, I mean, and it can range, and then you can follow along, or it can you can do one of your own, and it can range from everything like color cube challenge which a lot of people are familiar with.
The color cube is so much fun.
It was. And you pick simple models for that so everybody can do it and get it done quick.
Yep.
And then, and then all the way up to like you're trying to get people to take bites out of a spearhead or a kill team or something small, all the way to getting through their army. We probably won't structure it like Games Workshop did, where it was like, it seemed like every other...
Here's 25 different options.
And every other day it was a centerpiece.
Because that's not... to me, that's not enough of a rubric.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you could do any of this. It's like, I could always do any of this.
Yeah.
But like, they had rewards for theirs. So that's the difference. We won't. But I might have it be where
the completion is its own reward.
I'll show. We'll have a challenge for this month, and I'll show you what's coming next. I mean, the idea obviously is to not cheat. There's no reason to. This is for fun, And
to challenge yourself. And to get in good habits.
Get to inspire the community. Inspire yourself to get stuff done. Inspire me to get stuff done, because I need to get stuff done. But maybe get you a little bit of a heads up of what's coming the next month, so that you've got some time to prepare. It's not just sprung on you, as kind of a surprise. But I don't want the whole year to be shown, just because I don't want you to work on it now for December, for October,
right?
Because that's always what it is.
Yep.
Halloween.
Not going to give you a full roadmap.
Yeah. So keep holding on. You be yourself.
Yeah.
Hold on for that.
Believe in yourself.
In the near future, we'll be showing some of that off, and then we've got some kind of plans for that. So I'm starting to get lightheaded because I haven't eaten in a while.
Well, that's no good.
I think we should probably go eat.
All right, we can go eat. We can eat.
Yeah,
we can eat. You sure at first you don't want to talk at length about that thing?
Be and eat? What?
And you want to talk at length about that thing before you eat?
What thing?
The thing that was going to take a really long time.
Oh, you mean that? No, let's eat.
No, let's eat.
Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.